Michael Mizrahi, on one of the biggest luck box runs that mirrors probably Jerry Yang's run back in '07, he hit every single 777 on the slot machine in the most dire of circumstances. And yes, this guy, you can't really see it, but if you look closely at his left bicep, you could see the Israel flag is tattooed on his arm. And right before he won the main event, he made sure to roll up his sleeve so that people could see that he had the Israel flag tattooed on his arm.
Now that I appreciate. That I appreciate. I like to know who my bigots are. I say that all the time. I actually appreciate that.
Yes.
So wait, Justin, were you at this table?
No, this is actually the first year that I didn't play the main event. And a big part of the reason why is the World Series of Poker asked me to take my kafia off, and I didn't really feel like playing their tournaments anymore.
Okay, so let's get into
that. A bit okay. I feel like you buried the lead here.
No, well, it was going to evolve into this topic because I don't know if Eli Elezra is the person who basically tried to get you arrested, but it wouldn't surprise me if he is the person.
Wait, let him tell the whole story about what happened, because that's wow. So he's allowed to be tattooed with essentially a swastika, as far as I'm concerned. And yeah, so how did that come up? So you obviously put it on.
Yeah, okay. So backstory, I've always been outspoken about politics on Twitter, on social media, but I haven't really done it at the table. And I was playing, so the main World Series of Poker is every June and July in Las Vegas. They also have some international ones. They did a Caribbean one in December in the Bahamas. And I was playing that. For the start of the series, I wasn't wearing my kafia. But then they did a charity tournament, which isn't that abnormal, but this charity tournament was a fundraiser for the IDF, for families of the IDF.
Oh, no.
And yeah, of course, like, you know, I begged them to cancel it. I begged them to, like, I said, maybe donate half the money to Palestine, which obviously they didn't do. I asked some of the pros to stop playing it, and a few did. I spoke to a few, and like once they were educated about it, they did decide to back out. And the tournament, it only got about 20 players, so it wasn't this like massive thing. But to me, that was a line in the sand. That was, okay, you're getting political now. Let's make it political. And all I did, you know, I made some statements on social media, and then I just started wearing my kafia at the poker table. And I wasn't aggressive. I didn't harass anyone. I didn't actually bring it up at the table. And I was playing this big, it was a $25,000 entry fee tournament with 2,000 players. So massive, massive prize pool. I think it was the biggest prize pool tournament of the entire year. And it's this big 7-day tournament, and I'm doing really well in it. And day 6 rolls around. Okay, one thing the viewers need to know is there's roughly 8 players to a table, and they have a few feature tables that are like on the live stream.
TV.
Okay.
And they had 2 in particular, like 2 tables that were like dedicated live stream tables. And so once I made it down to the final 16 players, they had no choice but to put me on one of the live stream tables. Now, normally as a high profile pro, they would have put me on one of those stream tables before that point. But because of the kafia, they absolutely did not. But with 16 players left, they had no choice. And the tournament director, who I actually quite like, he's an Irish fellow, like, which I think means he gets it in a lot of ways. He was on the verge of tears telling me, like, look, Justin, the higher ups told me you have to take the kafia off. If they don't, they'll disqualify you. Please don't make me disqualify you. It's like the last thing that I want to do. Yeah, and this was like on a short break. I think it was a 15-minute break before I was about to play. Keep in mind, I'm competing for $6 million here. So I need to be absolutely focused. I need to be firing on all cylinders. I don't have time to, you know, consult a lawyer and deal with all this stuff. And yeah, I'm a little bit embarrassed to admit that, like, yeah, I took the kafia off, but you know, it's millions of dollars. It's really important money. And to me, yeah, you are hinting at the hypocrisy of it. Like, yeah, they did a charity fundraiser for the IDF, but I can't wear this scarf because it was made in Palestine, because it has trade lines and olive trees on it. Like, give me a break.
I mean, I'm not remotely surprised, but I think a lot of that also, and you know, who owns Las Vegas?
I mean, the mob, the big casinos, billionaires, capitalism.
Right, right. So it's like, we know that there is a huge link between capitalism and Zionism. especially in this country, right? Those two things are so interconnected. So, and we also know that the big issue, the big divide is based on kind of economic lines, even within the Jewish community. You see that this is a class issue in a lot of ways. And so when you're dealing with big money stuff like that, you're inevitably dealing with Zionists at the top of the food chain. And that's the problem, right? Like if this was happening although it wouldn't be happening in some other, unknown place, like that's the whole point. But Vegas is full of Zios.
Are you of liberty to say which poker pro it was that tried to get you arrested?
No, and I'm not sure what you're referencing. But
when I read the article about you wearing or the issue at the tournament, and apparently there were people that were just so up in arms about you wearing a kafia at the table that they were basically trying to report you and say this guy's acting like a terrorist, and blah, blah, the whole typical Zionist talking points. So I wasn't sure if it was one person in particular.
It could have been the eye in the sky.
It's true.
Yeah, I mean, that happens all the time. I get literal death threats all the time on Twitter. There's one poker player in particular, Robbie Straczynski. He runs like one of the Card Player magazine. I don't know if he owns Card Player magazine, but he lives in the West Bank. And I've butted heads with him because I've straight up told him, like, look, you are breaking international law by living on stolen Palestinian land. Like, how dare you lecture me for wearing a scarf or whatever?
You're like the poker player equivalent of, like, what's his name? Patty McCory. Who was the guy who pummeled
Pat McCory.
Yeah,
the Irishman who was beating up the IDF soldier.
Did you see that?
No, I didn't.
Oh, I don't watch that. I don't watch fighting because I'm not a fan of that. But this was particularly glorious. So the Irishman in an MMA in a fight pins and beats the crap out of the Israeli and screaming free Palestine, and he knocks him out and he stands up and holds up the Palestinian flag.
It was pretty bad.
It was pretty badass. So you're the poker equivalent of that.
Yeah, and the main player I've butted heads with, his name is Daniel Negreanu, and he is
Danny? Get out of here.
He's the most famous poker player in the world, and he is a huge Zionist.
How do you not know that?
The frickin' French Canadian is a massive Zionist. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, Canadian, not French Canadians from Toronto, but yeah.
Okay. Well, Negreanu, I thought
no. That makes all the difference. Toronto is where my friend's family all lives. That they're all Zios.
Yeah, and like he and I actually used to be friends 20 years ago. We co-hosted a podcast called All Strategy, where we just talked about strategy in poker, and then he like slowly went off the deep end. Yeah, we butted heads on a bunch of political issues. Really, he started hating me once he got sued for sexual harassment and settled out of court.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I started speaking out a bit about it a little bit. I left his name off of it the first time I even started about it, but ever since then, like...
Well, you called him out.
Yeah. And even before I called him out, even before I named him, like he knew that I knew about it, and he's just like really given me the cold shoulder ever since. And we've gotten like more aggressive to each other. He started calling me, what was it? Jihadimo. Yeah, because I support Palestine. In his mind, that makes me a terrorist.
Oh, yeah.
To me, the one thing people overstate in some instances the legitimacy of the bigotry and what level it's at in this country today. There can never be a denial from anyone. I don't care how liberal or conservative you may be. The amount of Muslim bigotry that exists in our culture is so off the charts. It is so obvious. And yes, it is predominantly a white issue in that the white community absolutely hates the brown Muslim community.
The white people hate all brown people.
Well, I'm just saying.
They're not particular about religion.
This is a particular cultural clash in which they don't hide it. If they have to use whatever the version of the N-word is to describe call them a terrorist, that's the equivalent of using the N-word at a black person. That's basically what it means. And they do it so freely, like they don't even hesitate. They're like, you're a terrorist, you're a terrorist. Why? Because I happen to be of a different culture than you are? To me, listen, I won't take anything away from him. He is he's right up there with you, with Ivy, with Helmuth in terms of the best players that have ever sat at the felt. But at the end of the day, that doesn't mean he's not a shitty person.
See, I hear felt and I think pool.
Well,
I played pool.
The poker felt. I don't understand how you don't like poker at all.
Not that I don't like poker. I just don't play. If I'm in a casino, I'm a craps table person, but I'll only play if there's no other women at the table.
How did you fall into this? I mean, clearly there had to have been, I mean, you go from, and the one thing that I've learned just from my personal experience playing in Atlantic City and in Vegas a couple of times, if you sit down and you think about the money, you're going to lose. So there had to have been something that created this sort of, I'm playing in the 1-2 and the 2-5s, and then, you know, listen, I don't
know what you're talking about, but that's okay.
The stakes that you played at the table. I've been following Brad Owen, and I think he's probably the prime example of somebody who literally started small and now has evolved into a much more known commodity in terms of people are following him from all over the world. But what was it like for you? Was it a similar trajectory in terms of how you got to where you are?
I started real young. And yeah, Jen, you hinted at Magic the Gathering earlier. Yeah, I was obsessed from like 9 years old. By the time I was 14, I was traveling around the US playing Magic tournaments. When I was 16, I went to Europe a couple of times to compete in these tournaments. And then a couple of the older kids that I played Magic with started doing really well at poker. And I just kind of thought, we have a similar skill set. If they could do it, maybe I could do it too. And I always had a problem with authority, just like the standard way of life. You're supposed to work hard in high school so you can get into a good college, so you can, you know, get married at a young age and have kids and have a 9-to-5 job that you don't like. And so I was always looking for a way out of that. So when I was 17, I basically slept through high school so I could stay up all night playing poker. And by the time I graduated high school, I was already making more money than my parents were combined.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's really cool. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's typical. That, like most people can't do that, but I might need to connect you with my boy, because if he could turn his little Magic the Gathering into like your little enterprise, that could be very good. You know, he just started college this week. So, you know, yeah, but I think that's awesome. I think that, so it's basically nerds evolving into this whole, like, that's really cool.
Yeah, basically. And like, I'm really grateful for the opportunities it's provided me. Like, I've gotten to avoid a lot of the problems that other people have to deal with, gotten to travel around the world. It's been a super cool life.
That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah.
The life of a poker player is very difficult for people to comprehend. I've seen what gambling addiction does, including to a family member of mine. It's a very serious business. Just being in Vegas and, you know, knowing, even though he unfortunately is a Zionist, even though I know a lot of people like him, but Mike Matusow is probably one of the best examples of a person who has incredible talent, but he really does not know how to not be a degenerate. Like, that's what he is. He's a degenerate. And he is the majority of the people who end up trying to do this for a living. Can you talk about what that experience has been like being in Vegas, and how playing poker professionally, what's the saying is, it's a hard way to make an easy living?
Yeah, and that's absolutely true. I've had multiple losing years before, and I say that as one of the most accomplished poker players in the world. Like, that's just part of the game, especially if you're a tournament player. And it's hard when you're 9 months into a losing streak. You start to question everything. Like, it's brutal. And we're not talking about just like, you know, a game of Parcheesi. We're talking about like large sums of money being lost. It's really rough. You definitely have to have a lot of mental fortitude. In the case of Mike Matusow, it's sad. Like, I don't know exactly what mental illnesses he has, but he definitely has some. Over the past 24 years, you know, I've watched his mind kind of devolve. He used to come off like a relatively sane person. He just has no grip on reality anymore, and it's very sad to see. While there are a lot of sad cases in poker, like degenerate gambling, his case is very out of the ordinary. That's not a normal thing that you see.
Well, the one thing I will say that I think contributes a lot to that, and this was my personal experience, the first time I went to Vegas was 2006. And, you know, I would see one side of the room that had, you know, Ted Forrest, Joe Hashem, Greg Raymer, guys like that. And then the other side of the room, you would have guys like Mike and Shakan, and the guys that are there to basically live the Vegas lifestyle. And it is absolutely insane how fast it is and how quickly you can blow through everything. It's the drinking, it's the prostitutes, it's everything. It's a completely out of sight, out of mind way of living. And they do it every day, and they've done it for years. I can't even.
That's why it's called Sin City, baby.
In a big way. But when you started succeeding, I'd have to imagine that there was a lot of temptation that was basically being thrown in your direction. Like, everything was available at the drop of a hat.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I was a 19-year-old with, you know, way more money than any 19-year-old should have. I'm proud of myself because for the most part, I was responsible. I had a bender on my 21st birthday or whatever, but like I would drink every now and then. But for the most part, I managed to stay relatively vice-free. I think people get into poker for two primary reasons. One is the adrenaline rush. Two, because they're strategy nerds. If you follow the people who get in because they crave that adrenaline rush, even if they're talented, intelligent people, they will almost always burn out and fail at poker. You have to be in it for the strategy of like just being dedicated to like finding and making the right decision. Those are the people who really thrive at poker.